Hi, everyone. We want to welcome you for tonight, June 27th at 8 p.m. with Stacey Robbins. She's right here.
Yay!
Hello!
We love to have Stacey with us. She's so much fun. You probably all know Stacey Robbins already. She's been a dear friend of us from the get-go. And she's a big part of why Hashimoto's awareness, HeyHashi today, is what it is a success. And so thank you so much for your wisdom, Stacey, for your guidance through these last 3 years. And for those who don't know Stacey yet, she's an integrated wellness coach, a speaker, and an award-winning author of You're Not Crazy and You're Not Alone, Losing the Victim, Finding Your Sense of Humor, and Learning to Love Yourself Through Hashimoto's. She, with nearly 20 years of experience with Hashimoto diagnosis, Stacey's situation prompted her to not only uncover the physical dynamic of this condition, but to dive into the body-mind-spirit connection as well. And this is what I love about Stacey, because she's like an expert at this, like connecting this on the body-mind-spirit, which we don't hear much in the community. So it's so nice to have you today, Stacey. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I love you and Pearl, Fabienne. I love what you guys are doing and what you've created from your own circumstances to help others in their circumstances, and I'm honored and grateful to be part with you, not just in the work of being on the board, but also just our friendship and being in community together with Hashimoto's, thriving together and helping others to thrive. So thank you. Yay!
Yes, and before we get started, everyone, I just wanted to share with you a little bit of the logistics for tonight's webinar. So as an attendee to this webinar, if you haven't been with us before, you have a microphone and a camera that's going to be turned off. So if you have a question, you can just type it right in the questions box on your control panel, and that's usually, it shows up to the right of your screen. And we want to be really clear on this, that it's the question box. You can ask questions throughout the duration of the webinar, and if you want to remain anonymous, please type a note at the end in your question about that. There's a couple features we wanted just to share with you that Stacey might be using through the webinar. She actually will be using. The number one feature is the hand raising. So if you look on your phone or your computer, you'll see that there's this button for your hand. It's usually next to your name. Just if you want to raise your hand, you can, and you have a question, you can raise your hand. And actually, Stacey might ask you for a show of hands for a certain question, and you can totally connect with her that way. So right now, why don't you just give it a try? Go look and take a look at the features next to your name. All right. Awesome. Everyone's figuring it out very quickly, of course. Awesome. Okay, good. So perfect. The second feature that we wanted to talk to you about just briefly is the polls. So we do this really super fun thing on these webinars. They're called the polls. It's a questions that Stacey's come up with that really kind of integrates what she's going to be sharing with you tonight and speaking with you about. And we really encourage you to answer the questions and be really there with her, because it's really something that you'll take away with you and that you can take with you through your journey. So just throughout the poll's going to pop up on the screen. You're not going to see any faces, but you'll still hear our voices, and you'll be able to click a multiple choice answer. And actually, with the polls tonight, you'll be able to choose more than one choice at a time. So not just one, you can choose 2, you can choose 3, 4, or 5. So when those come up, we'll let you know. Other than that, we are ready to go.
Woohoo! Okay, so go ahead. Sorry, Fab, go ahead.
No, I was going to give you the space. Yeah, so we are going to take our camera off, but we are with you. Stacey, if you need anything, we'll come back on.
Oh, yes, because you know, I am not the queen of technology, and I may need your help. Okay, so I'm going to start with...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, let us know when you want the polls up, and we'll bring those up for you.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, first, I'm going to have everybody practice raising their hand. Do you know what this is? I want to know how many of you... I think that's the right way. Wait a minute. Yeah, no, that's the right way. I bought this on Facebook. Not on Facebook, but I saw it on Facebook. And it's one of those no, what is it called? The strapless bra. It's not even strapless. It's practically a braless bra. It doesn't have all the other parts. Anyway, but I just want to know how many of you can't stand these things, these like strapless bras. They're super painful. You want to take them off about 3 seconds after you put them on. Just raise your hand. Pearl, Fabienne, can you tell me if anybody's raising their hand, or does everybody in the audience love these? Or am I talking to all men today?
People are actually raising their hands.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know what. See, I got to figure out how to do it, but it's like surgical tape. I'm not going to do a display, but okay. I just thought I would share that with you so that we could test the technology and just have a real life girlfriend moment together. As Fabienne shared, my name is Stacey Robbins, and I love sharing this journey that I've been on because my heart in all of it is to shortcut you on your journey as you are working through your healing with Hashimoto's. And my aim is to help you to see this as a tool in your toolbox to have your life be the best life that you are meant to live. I know that that may not make sense to you right now, but I think that as our webinar goes on and over the course of the next 30 to 60 minutes, something is going to shift in the way you see the usefulness of this crazy diagnosis. I want to start off first with my story a little bit, and please forgive my congestion and my little cough. Of course, I got like the cold from Hades last week, thanks to my 15-year-old who coughed all over everything and gave it to me. So I sound like Kathleen Turner tonight with my voice. Okay, so the first thing I'll share is a little bit about my story. I was going through a really fast-paced life about 20-something years ago. I was in my mid-20s. I was a professional musician, and I was living at like a rocket speed kind of pace. I was performing all the time, writing songs, recording in the studios, getting to work with amazing artists and on stage all the time. I had this sexy, curvy body and a really sexy husband, and he played the saxophone and I sang, and everybody thought we played beautiful music together because that's the way it looked on the outside, right? We were young, we were hip, we did great music, and we looked great. So life had this great appearance to it. What was going on underneath was a lot of turmoil in my marriage, and not only was a lot going on between us and places where we hadn't yet grown up, which, you're not usually fully grown up at 25 and 26 anyway, but it was especially strong for us. And so we were going through that, and we ended up being separated for a time. While that happened, I was hit in the first of 2 car accidents, and while that was going on, my father began the process of dying at the very young age of 49 with his complications to type 1 diabetes. Now, I was going at this really fast pace when all of these hard things hit at seemingly one time, and then I ended up kind of careening over this hard situation, these hard times, and I ended up crashing. My life crashed and burned. And what happened was I started having symptoms, strange symptoms, like I was getting sinus infections all the time. I was getting colds all the time. I was getting body aches all of a sudden that, okay, well, maybe that's from the car accident. Or I was getting insomnia, things that I had never had before, where either I couldn't go to sleep at night and I was wired throughout the day, wired at night and tired in the day, or I would sleep all night and then it wasn't enough. I wasn't feeling restful. My skin started freaking out. I started getting hives and just welts all over my face, and I used to have peaches and cream skin, and I started gaining weight. Like epic proportion, like I'd gain 10 pounds in a week or 15, 20 pounds in a month, and I kept going to the doctors over and over again, and he was working with what he saw, and the things that he saw were things like sinus infection. Oh, let's give her antibiotics. Oh, pain in her body. Let's give her Vicodin or Lodine. Oh, she's dealing with anxiety. That's another symptom I was dealing with. Let's give her an anti-anxiety meds. Oh, she's dealing with high cholesterol. Let's give her cholesterol meds. Okay, she's dealing with sleep issues. Let's give her sleeping pills. So by the time months and my weight, let's give her some pills for that, 3 times the dose of fen-phen to make sure that I could lose weight. But none of those things were helping, and we still didn't have clarity on what was going on with me. Within 9 months, I had gained about 70 pounds. I was convinced that the ground trembled at the thought of me waking up in the morning. I had never been that weight. My body looked like an alien. It looked like I had eaten myself. I just woke up and I didn't know who I was. I didn't recognize me. I was feeling sad. I was depressed. And I had all of these other reasons that we could have pointed to, whether it was the car accident, the loss of my dad, the stress in my marriage, my busy pace and heavy work schedule. And all of those things could have justified it. But as I was taking care of some of those issues, I was finding that the symptoms weren't getting any better. So eventually, I reached a point where the doctors told me, we don't know what's wrong with you, but this is what somebody's body does before they die. Because my skin literally would bleed to the touch. If I touched my hand would bleed. If I touched my face would bleed. I couldn't eat food without having to run to the bathroom. I couldn't hold any nutrition. I was totally depleted, and I was a mess. Within a couple of months of being told that, my life went through a huge process, because I was trying to now examine what is it going to be for my life to not be what I thought my life would be, to be ending at such a young age. And my journey not only was about finding some healing answers for the physical parts, but it was also about finding some peace, because I realized that I wasn't at peace. I realized that I was in a lot of conflict with myself, and because I ended up being so heavy and had such a daunting diagnosis about my life, I ended up going inward and examining a lot. Through the process, though, I kept going to doctors, and then I started finding natural remedies and natural health and the power of food, and I started hearing less daunting diagnosis. In fact, I actually got a solid name for this thing I was going through. It was called Hashimoto's. The doctor was actually pretty excited and said to me, we are so glad, because you can take this little pill called Synthroid, and then in 3 months you're going to lose all your weight and you're going to feel better. And in 3 months I gained 30 more pounds, and I didn't feel better. So I was now 100 pounds, more than 100 pounds overweight. I was 270 pounds. I had given up most of my career, and I was on this very introspective journey, and also finding alternative modalities of treatment. So in that time of questioning myself, of saying, do I have peace? Am I okay with who I am? Am I okay to leave? Am I okay to stay? Am I okay with me on the inside? And I recognized that I wasn't. I recognized that I had a lot of patterns and beliefs, and a lot of pushing myself hard, and a lot of chaotic relationships. I started seeing that I had a really wonky spirituality, and that there were so many things that had been traumas to me in my life as I was sitting and examining, why did I not have peace, and why did my body break down? So in all of the introspection, I had this feeling like I was in a dark room, you know, and that's how I imagine so many women and men who have been diagnosed with or have these symptoms feel like. It's like I have all these symptoms, I go to the doctor tells me I'm fine. I don't feel like I'm fine, my body's not acting like it's fine. The doctor tells me to rest and be less stressful, so I rest and I'm less stressful, and I'm still gaining weight. I still don't feel like me. I'm still exhausted. What is going on? And so we feel like we're in this dark room of symptomology. And then one day we get this diagnosis called Hashimoto's, and it kind of lands in our lap like this heavy thing. And that's how it felt for me. But once I learned what Hashimoto's was, it's an autoimmune condition where my body is attacking itself, its own thyroid. I was able to see that this diagnosis is like a flashlight. I'm in the dark room of these symptoms, and I've been given this flashlight to shine down the corridors of my life, to shine down my self-examination of my relationships, of my spirituality, of the way I relate to food and the relationship I'm in with exercise. It was an opportunity for me to look at my work schedule and my pace and why I pushed myself so hard. It was an opportunity for me to see my patterns of rest or not rest, and why did I not allow myself to really relax. And so I took Hashimoto's and I shined it down all these corridors, and I started coming up with some similar themes. I started noticing that the reason that I drove myself in my work, and the reason I was in crazy toxic relationships, and the reason that I worked so ridiculously hard and slept 4 hours a night, and all of those things that I was looking at, and the reason that I used food to comfort myself and reward myself instead of using it to heal myself, and the reason I worked really hard at working out, but I didn't really listen to my body, all of those things were pointing to some similar themes. And one of the themes was that I treated myself like I had something to prove to me. Like I had failed at being me, and I had to make up for that. And I was going to have to make up for that by working extra hard and making lots of money. I was going to have to make up for that by showing that I could endure crazy relationships. And I was going to have to make up for that by proving that I could perform and that I could do all these things and excel and push myself harder than other people. So I realized that I felt like there was something to prove. I also realized that there was something that in me that felt like I was broken and needed to be fixed. And so because I was coming from this place of feeling like I was just a broken person and that I was wrong, I used my life to try to right myself. So if I thought that maybe I'm a bitchy, cranky person, I thought I had to be overly nice in another direction to prove that I was really a good person, or I had to overgive financially, or I had to overdo and overserve, because I was trying to make up for something that I was lacking in myself. So I was kind of using my life to prove that I was worthy. And then I also saw that, that feeling of unworthiness. That was a theme, that I just didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel worthy of being loved. I didn't feel worthy of being in healthy, whole, kind relationships. In fact, it felt more comfortable for me to be in chaotic, rejecting relationships, and I found myself surrounded by people who were treating me like I needed to be fixed. I was broken, I needed to be fixed, and they were there to fix me. You know, they were pointing out my weaknesses instead of celebrating my strengths. But what happened was, as I started looking at my relationships, initially it was sort of like a blame fest. It was like a woe is me, and look at all these things other people have done to me, and woe is me, look at this bad thing that happened to me. And I was in victim mode, for sure, because I was looking for some place, some external place to blame what was happening. But at some point, I saw that really the relationships that I was in and the choices I were making were reflective of a belief I had about myself. And I had to examine that. You know, an example is I would go to the doctors and I would spend gobs of money. I mean, we spent so much money going to specialists who promised they'd have an answer for us. And I'd buy, I'd pay $500 to go to the doctors 20 years ago, cash out of pocket. That was a lot of money. It's a lot of money now. And then I'd buy $500 in supplements, and I'd either take them for a couple of days and then stop, or I wouldn't even take them at all. And I started looking at my life like a curious observer, and I started saying, Stacey, why do you do that? Why do you invest up to a point, but then you don't follow through with the actions to support your health? Why don't you do that? And I recognize certain things, like I feel hopeless. I feel hopeless. I've tried other things and they haven't worked. I've trusted other health professionals, and it wasn't accurate what they said, and it didn't apply to me, and things didn't result the way they had promised. So I found that I felt hopeless, and I was afraid to put my hope and my effort into something and have it not work again. It's almost like it was easier to just stay in that sad place rather than have hope and then come back to a sad place. Like that was more crushing to me, so I just stayed in a hopeless place. I also found that I was afraid to hope that I would get well, because I realized a pattern in my life that I lived from trauma to trauma. I lived from one hard circumstance to another hard circumstance, whether it was the challenges in my childhood or some childhood injuries that I had or some traumas that I had that were from sports or from friendships or from an abuse that I went through, that I was more comfortable with the cloudy days than the sunny days. I felt like I didn't trust goodness, and I didn't know how to hold on to the joy of life. So it was a risk for me to try to get healthy because I didn't really know how to live in that realm of goodness. So that is a good place for me to ask this question, that the poll that I wanted to ask those of you. Before your diagnosis, was there any kind of particular event that you went through, whether it was a sports injury, an abuse, a neglect, something profound that happened? So, Pearl, are we able to pull that poll up for everyone? Thank you so much. That's great. Before you were diagnosed with Hashimoto's, did you experience trauma, an accident or injury, like a car injury or a sports injury or a fall, a loss of a loved one, that significant trauma of losing someone we love, a virus or a sickness, or an intense stress, like a big work project? It's funny what our bodies do under stress. You know, one of my dear friends, he does criminal law, and when people are murdered and that kind of stuff, and so when he's in a big trial, his hair turns white. He is this dark complected man with pitch black hair, and then while he's going through the stress of a trial, his hair turns white, and then once the trial is over, his hair grows back in black again. It's amazing how our bodies react to stress. So if you could answer that, that'd be great, and we'll check that out in a minute.
We're going to close the poll in about 10 seconds.
Great. And the reason I ask this question is because I find that there are some common triggers for before people who were diagnosed with Hashimoto's. Okay, so let's look at our poll responses. Trauma, 21%. 0 was an accident or injury. That's really interesting. Loss of a loved one is 19%. A virus or sickness, 15%. And intense stress, 45%. That's a significant number. You know what? While we're here, I am really curious, and this doesn't show your name or anything, so I just want you to know that, because I know this next question about abuse, experiencing abuse, is very personal. So, Pearl, can we pull that poll up while we're here? We'll just do these two together since they kind of relate. Great. Did you experience abuse as a child or young adult? Please select all that apply: sexual, physical, verbal, and or emotional, all of the above, or none. Now this moment of examining that can be a trigger for that experience that we may have had. And just, I want to remind you in this moment that while you are ticking the box on that with your computer, that is not your current state. And I also want to remind you that that is not who you are. And I want to talk about that for a minute, because that was a huge part of the healing for me. So we'll give that another 10 seconds. Is that good, Pearl?
Yeah, like 5 more seconds. Yeah.
Okay, 5 more seconds. Great. Sexual abuse, 12%. Physical, 13%. Verbal, emotional, 52%. All of the above, 10%. And none, 35%. That is really interesting, because when I have done these polls before, we have ended up just at around 65% have experienced abuse. So this is very true. I've been asking tens of thousands of women these same questions for the last probably 12 years, and that is almost always the percentage is between 65 and 70%. I think that's a significant number. So what I want to share with you, a revelation that I had when I was dealing with letting go of the victim, is that I had gone through certain things in my childhood. We were raised in a very physical home, so the responses to things not being done right wasn't just a strong word. It was angry words, unkind words, abusive words, and a heavy hand. And these were great parents, you know, so it's like great parents raised in a culture where this was acceptable, you know, where you as a parent were allowed to let the anger in you get the best of you, and then it ends up on your child. So, you know, so I went through that, and then I went through abuse outside of the home, where I was sexually abused by 2 people outside of my home. One was ongoing, and one was one circumstance. And I had to keep it a secret. I had to keep it here, and I found that I wouldn't allow myself to cry. I wasn't allowed to cry. I had to pretend. I had to live a double life. I had to live this life in front of my parents that pretended everything was okay, when I was at school that everything was okay. But on the inside, I was falling apart. I was crushed because of what I went through, and the fact that I couldn't be known. And when you can't be known in a struggle, in a hardship, in an abuse, you don't get to experience compassion. You don't get to experience comfort. You don't have somebody outside of you telling you, you are not that circumstance. And so what I find to be a common thread, and stay with me here because this is a big thought, but it's also a very healing and profound thought, is that the same part of us that had to keep the secret and felt like we were living a double life, where people didn't get to know us and understand us and didn't get to comfort us, is a very similar feeling to be having the symptoms of Hashimoto's and having people tell us to just get up, come on, buck up, pull up your bootstraps, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and don't be lazy. Come on, can't you just get over it? Can't you just take a pill? There is a very similar thread in that. And when we don't experience the compassion and understanding outside of us, there is a part of us that gets confused, and especially if it's threaded to an abuse in our childhood, that can be, we can believe that we are the circumstance that we went through. And in that place of arrested thinking and arrested development, where we stop at this point of the event, we stop thinking clearly about ourselves at the point of this event, if we're not able to separate what we went through from who we are, we can very easily become a victim in life. So it's not just being victimized in the circumstance, it's what we do to ourselves beyond that point, where we maintain a victimhood because we are not able to separate who I am from what I went through. When I was in that introspective time with Hashimoto's diagnosis, I was able to do some separating. I was able to go to some classes and do some introspection that was helpful for me to separate who I am from what I've gone through. And I was able to see that that was an event, and I am a divine human being. And that I can use that event to expand me as a divine human being. And that I don't have to live like life is on top of me. I can live like I am on top of life if I recognize my power to use every circumstance in my life to ascend, to be my best self. I use the word the alchemist. You know, when the alchemist is someone who takes iron and they have the ability to turn that into gold. You have this ability to take this hard circumstance that doesn't seem to have any good value and actually transmute it into something that's of immense value, because now you can use it and add to your compassion as a human being, add to your connection with other human beings, add to your elevation of being able to help others to separate who they are from what they've gone through, where you're not encouraging other people to live on emotional welfare anymore, you know, because you're saying, hey, you're more powerful than that. I won't treat you like a victim. I'm not going to act like a victim. We're going to, and truthfully, I don't even go the route of saying, oh, we're going to live like survivors. I don't take that on either, because I'm not identified with being a survivor any more than I am identified with being a victim. I'm a divine human being, and I'm living out my design of loving myself and loving others, and inspiring others to live in that love. that is so much more what I want to be identified with. So before I have Pearl and Fabienne jump in and bring the questions that you might have to the table, the thing that I want you most to know is that through this part of my journey of the introspection, so much healing came to my body because I was no longer sabotaging myself. Hashimoto's gave me the opportunity to sit down on my couch because I couldn't do a lot and I was exhausted. And it gave me the opportunity to go, wait, this diagnosis is about me, my body attacking itself, treating my body, like my thyroid, like it's an enemy instead of a friend. Where do I do that in life? Where do I do that in my spirituality and in my relationships, in my work, in my rest, in my food, in my exercise? Where do I do that? Because I bet there's a thread of connection. And so in that introspection, I was able to discover some beliefs that were hiding in the back, running my show and driving me in my life. And until I had to sit still and examine myself, I couldn't see those things. So that is the flashlight, the gift of Hashimoto's. And that's why I say Hashimoto's can heal your life. Because can I say to you, oh, I know that one day you'll be off medicine or one day you won't need those vitamin B supplements? No, I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is that Hashimoto's can be this light that you shine on your life and you examine yourself and say, am I in alignment with my best self? Am I in alignment with love? Is there any fear in me or any part of me that's being driven by some past event or some limiting belief? Because I'm going to use this thing to help shine a light on those things so that I can be free. Because really, for me, the gift of being able to see what I couldn't see has helped me to be free. And now I make different choices in my life. Choices about my food. Foods are easier. Why? Because I like me and I know that I'm here for a beautiful purpose. So I choose things that support those qualities in me and my belief in me. And when I didn't believe that about myself, I sabotaged my efforts. I would say I want to lose weight, and then I'd eat all this gluten-filled food that didn't work for me, or I'd eat half a pound of brownies, or I would just give up on a food program after a few days and say it's not worth it, I have too far to go, I'll never get there. Like, I realized I was sabotaging my efforts, and I do that a whole lot less. I'd love to say I don't do that ever, but my husband will tell you I do. I do sabotage myself sometimes, and I do certain things that help to tattle on myself and get me out of that mode so I can be conscious and honoring of myself. So that has been the last 20 years, and I want to invite Pearl and Fabienne back because I'm sure they have great questions, and I'd love to answer your questions.
Stacey, we're going to relaunch that first poll question. A lot of comments are coming in that people had more than one experience that affected their Hashimoto's, and there was only an option to pick one. So we're going to launch that poll one more time, and people can select multiple answers.
Thank you, Natasha. Okay, before you were diagnosed with Hashimoto's, did you experience, please select all that apply, trauma, accident, or injury, a loss of a loved one, a virus or a sickness, or intense stress? You know my story is I had like 14 freaking things, you know, going on. I had my marriage falling apart. We were separated. I was hit in the first of 2 car accidents, and I had whiplash in both of them. I was losing my dad. I was a teacher at the time as well as a music performer. I also taught music in school, so I had to have all my vaccinations. I was reacting to all of them and ending up really sick, and the intense stress was my life. So basically, I could fill out all 5.
Okay, and we're about to close the poll in 10 seconds, and the answers look quite different than the first time we ran them, now that people can select more than one answer.
Thank you for letting me know that, Natasha.
Sure.
Holy crow. Intense stress, 89%.
Me. Yeah.
Accident. Wow. Big deal. What are you saying, Fab? I'm sorry.
It's just amazing, you know, and I mean, certainly, can we take that poll out now, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's incredible. Loss of a loved one, 51%. That is huge. The way we've processed trauma in our bodies. Go ahead, Fab, what were you going to say?
I just, it made me like really go inside and look at, I mean, you made me think about a lot of things. And so I can only imagine like out there the people, because there's not a lot of question coming in. And so I can feel the audience, staying with everything you said. That was really profound and touched me very deeply. So I'm thinking maybe we give them like a moment to reconnect with themselves. Invite them to go inside.
Absolutely, and I think I want to share this too, but you guys stay with me on this, okay? You don't have to bow out. I will say this while they're processing, and this happens a lot when I give these talks, because so many times we show up at a Hashimoto's event, and whether online or in person, and we are with our notebook really ready to dive into what's the next best med for me, and what's the next gluten-free recipe, and what are the supplements I should be taking if I have methylation issues. Like, we show up in our head space. And this conversation is so different because I'm bringing us into the different chakras. I'm bringing us into a different place. We experience our body. We experience loss and pain. And what has happened is, for many of us with Hashimoto's, we've gone up into our head, into the analytical place. Just tell me what to do. Tell me the formula of how to live. Because living in our body, especially if we went through trauma, abuse, or some kind of injury, we did not know how to live in that much pain and not be able to share it, because so many went through private abuses. So many people went through sexual abuse, and they were told, if you tell, I will hurt you worse. And so what happened is we got closed off. So many people got closed off, or they went through a massive stress time in their marriage, but then had to go pretend at work that everything was fine because they had to maintain the way things looked for their public image. I work with political people who are in political office. I work with some celebrity people and people who are well known in the community. They can't share with others the same way you and I are having this conversation, because they don't want to be known for their weaknesses in that way. And so they have to pretend. Well, what happens is we stop listening to our body because we're not really in a trusting relationship anymore with our body. This thing got abused. This thing got affected. We couldn't get help in this, so we climbed up here, divorced our body, and we live in this relationship where this thing is kind of doing its own thing. So when I bring up something that's coming out of our head and into our bodies again, where we feel that punch in the gut, we feel that tightness in our throat, we feel like we want to cry, and we have all those mechanisms flaring to shut down those feelings, it's sobering. I have people who sit across from me and they're like, wow, I haven't really allowed myself to be present to the whole of me in a long time. And I can relate to that. I've gone through that. So I can appreciate if it's sober. And it's also very private. People feel like even if they put the question out there, that they're going to be known, that someone's going to hurt them, or
yes, and it's okay if there's no question and you don't want to ask anything right now, because you're letting all these things come to the surface, and we are here to hold you and with you with that silence and those feelings coming up. And it's okay. Allow yourself to feel them, and just maybe hold your heart and just say something to yourself that might be helpful. Sometimes I just say, I love myself. Just as simple as that, and it helps me to reconnect with myself. Whatever works for you.
We have a question actually that just came in. She asked, do you have an opinion regarding the idea that we may have suffered trauma in past lives? Gabby asked.
That's a great question. I think that's such a valid and valuable question. And, Gabby, I don't have any particular belief that I hold to about yes to past lives or no to past lives. My life is about considering the possibilities that exist. And there are some times in this life where I feel like I've done this before. I've been here before. I've passed through this lesson before. And my friends who hold strongly to the idea of past lives say that might have been an experience you had before. So without judging that as yes or no or right or wrong, what I can say is that is a really interesting possibility. And my next question would be, well, then what do you do about that? What do you do with the thought, with if this did come from maybe something that wasn't from this lifetime, if there is another lifetime. And so I make my inquiries really, I'm very playful with God. You know, I have this just really kind of cute conversation like, oh my gosh, are there past lives? Okay, I don't really know if I'm going to know the answer or hear that, but okay, if there are, is there anything that I can do about clearing myself from that? Is there anything that I can do today with that consideration? And then I just listen, and I might just tell myself, okay, Stacey, you who experienced something, whether it was this lifetime or another one, you are safe. You are not your circumstances. All is well. You are trustworthy with your life, and goodness is here for you. You can let that go, and you can just keep the lesson. You can let go of the abuse and the replay of that, and you can just hold on to the lesson of what does that make me? A more compassionate person, a kind person, a more loving person, a more caring person with my touch. So just kind of creating almost an intention and soothing yourself if something did happen. I would probably go some of that route for me. What would you girls do? Pearl, Fabienne, what would you do?
Yes, you know, I mean, the story is the story anyways, past life or not. It's what we're going to do with it today, right here, right now. What am I going to do with my story? So how can I go forward with it? And so, yeah, I like the lesson that we're talking about. We all have stories, but, you know, it's also, I just like to live in the moment these days, more and more. I just like to be present to what is here now, rather than telling my stories again and again.
That's really powerful. What about you, Pearl?
You know, I had some trauma earlier in my life that I've, you know, dealt with and moved through and created a space for it to actually just be by itself and, you know, move through it. And when I started doing energy work, that's when I was really able to release those fears and release the idea that that's who I still was, or I was still experiencing those things like in, you know, like in my body, or like triggers that would come up for me. So I really started working through them in energy healing. And that was such a great, like, healing effort that went into, you know, me like getting into remission and really understanding like how powerful emotions can be on the thyroid and the body and the mind. It wasn't easy, but I had a great team. I had a great healer that I loved. And I would still continue the work. She actually ended up going to live in the mountains in Colorado in a hut with other healers. So she's no longer.
We need her. Get her back here.
No, she's amazing. Oh my goodness, her name was Barbara, and I love her. And she's like 85, and she looks like she's 50. So anyway.
That's great. Thank you for that, because energy work is such a healing thing, because there's this invisible realm, this part that maybe we feel like we don't know how to access, and there are people who are very gifted at that. And I know for some people this is the more woo-woo end of the conversation, but I truly believe in the same way that we live on a planet that is land, water, and air, and we can't see the air except we experience it when it moves, that we have a part of us, you know, we are made of land and we are made of water, and we are also that invisible space within us. And so I really do believe in the value of whether it's Reiki or it's, I practice Jin Shinjutsu. It's a Japanese modality. I think there are so many other energy works, Native American drum circles and sound baths, and oh my gosh, there's so many things out there. So if you wanted to go down that path, there is that available to you. I've worked with somebody who did ceremonies of breaking soul ties, and my connections to certain people who I found myself in patterns with in my life, very demanding, critical, you know, love you or hate you kind of people. And it's so funny, I don't have those people in my life anymore, and I think part of it was my consciousness. I recognized that those people were in a pattern in my life because I was in a love-hate relationship with me. So of course I was attracting people who were in the same kind of love-hate with me. They think I'm fabulous. They can't stand me. They think I'm fabulous. They can't. That's how I was with me. Oh my gosh, Stacey, you're amazing. You just, oh my God, you're a failure. How do you even like breathing? You're so stupid. You know, like I would do that to myself. And once I became conscious, and I also did some energy work, and I did some great courses and classes, I found myself surrounded by amazing people because I felt the amazement of me for me. So
yeah, I mean, I can really say it kind of saved my life. Actually, that's all I had for a long time. It was energy healing, and I wasn't undiagnosed at the time, so I don't know what I would be today without it. You know, for many years. So it's very supportive of your journey to go in those places with a great support, with a team. You know.
Mm-hmm. Well, if anybody hasn't asked a question,
They are.
Oh, they are? Okay. Go ahead.
Let's go to actually, once you're in remission, can you revert back to active Hashimoto's? Elizabeth asks.
I can tell you from the experience that I have with professionals, my colleagues in the field who have Hashimoto's, yes. You can go from 0 antibodies or beneath 30 antibodies, whatever someone would count as remission according to their definition, to having antibodies. Again, the expression of Hashimoto's, absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question. I am gluten-free for over 3 years, from Sherry. I have dairy, nuts. I think she means she got rid of dairy and nuts, cruciferous vegetables, sugar, grains, etc. are also bad for us. Yes. How important is it to exclude these? I feel like I have to give them up. My depression would be 10 times worse than I already am. I am tired of the lifetime roller coaster.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Sherry, I have lived that dream. I have lived the dream of, oh gosh, let me be gluten-free. And then I was gluten-free for like a week, and I'm like, I feel amazing. Now it's a gluten fest. And then I felt horrible. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this doesn't work for me. But Christmas is coming, so I'll just make it through Christmas. Oh my gosh, there's New Year's. Okay, well, maybe until Valentine's Day I'll just eat, and then but then there's Easter. You know, like I did this whole thing where I went back and forth between taking things out and putting things back in, and recognizing that I felt better in my body, but I also felt denied some ways in my life. And it has been a process for me over the last 6 years of feeling or of recognizing that food is about feeding my health. And that sounds really boring. It sounded boring even when I just said it myself and I heard myself say it. You want food to be like sexy, and you want to have like all that, you know, people talk about food porn and having it, you know, and I'm just like, yeah, food's just kind of like food right now. And if I feel good, my higher priority is energy. My higher priority is clarity of mind. 7 years ago, that was not my highest priority. My highest priority was cake. My highest priority was, I don't want to feel different than everybody else at my Italian family dinner. I want to eat fettuccine Alfredo, and I want to be able to drink as much red wine and do those sorts of things. And over time, you know, there's this saying, when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, we change. And so the pain of staying the same started being greater than the changes I was going to have to make. And I did it incrementally. And little by little, I just was like, okay, I think I need to be gluten-free. And I was like, okay, crap, I think I need to be nut-free. Okay, I think I'm going to be dairy-free too. And, you know, there are certain things that I pull back in and out of my body and test them and see if it'll work. And it doesn't work. So really, my job in my relationship with myself is to be listening. Now, for me, you're talking about an AIP protocol, and that works for so many of us with Hashimoto's. So I've done that, and I've thrived, and then I've done that and gone, wow, I think I need a little rice. For some reason, my body needs some carbs, and so I tried that for a little while, and then I went to a ketogenic program, and that works for a season. And so my relationship with myself is listening to the foods that bring healing, energy, clarity of mind, and a lift to me. So does that answer your question, Sherry? If it doesn't, please follow up with another question. Did I understand her, Fab?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And if I can offer one more thing, because I don't believe in sacrifice, you know, I mean, I think we have to enjoy life and we have to enjoy food especially, right? I mean, I'm from Europe, so I'm like, you know, it's so important. And so much happens around the table also.
Yeah.
And for me, the only way I can make it work is if I find a substitute for each of the things that I love that I cannot eat anymore. So I find a substitute that works. For example, I'm not having dairy anymore, so I love cream. So I'll make cashew cream. You know, whatever works for you, find something that will replace it, that will satisfy you on every level.
Yes, that's a great idea. The substitutes are really helpful. We made keto bread today. Okay, the boys made keto bread. It has 7 ingredients. It has 7 ingredients. They asked me like 27 questions on how to make it. But they did, and it was so nice. So keto bread has almond flour, which I can tolerate in certain portions, and it had coconut oil, but I can't do that. So I put avocado oil, and you know, like I just worked with the substitutions that I know for my body, and I got to have an experience of bread today, and I felt so happy. And my kids were like, "Oh my God, Mom, this tastes like egg bread." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. It tastes like bread with eggs. Like the way I'm seeing it, it totally filled my cup today." So you're right, Bob. I love substitutions.
We're getting a question coming in right now. It says, how to overcome sugar cravings when you've been eating a lot for years, from Anna.
I've been there. So the first thing, Anna, I would want to know, why am I going to go sugar-free? I need to have a really strong why to give up something that's that amazing, right? So, because I'm going to lose sight of that. It's almost like, why am I going to run a marathon? I need to know why when I'm at the starting line, because I'm going to get to the middle of the desert halfway through the marathon, and I'm going to need to remember why when none of this looks like fun and none of it feels like fun. So I would want to know, what's my strong why? Why? Because I react to sugar, I get hives on my face, because I get constipated, whatever your charming list is of things, of the reasons why. Those are going to be the negatives, right? Because of the things that it affects. But then you're going to have to make a list of the positives, right? So the list of the positives might be, my skin looks clearer, I look younger, my skin is tighter. And I'll tell you this, just personally, I have been on a ketogenic plan for almost 70 days. My cellulite is going away. I never thought anything could take it away. I didn't even know that was going to be one of my whys, but I got to tell you, it's pretty motivating. Anyway, so my kids tell me, Mom, you're less flappy since you stopped eating so much sugar. Thank you, boys. So anyway, so I would say start with the whys. That's the important thing, because they're going to fuel your motivation when you are in a situation where you're tempted. The other thing is then also know that the first set of days might have some challenges. They might include some headaches and so on and so forth. So when I was doing it, I don't want to torture myself. I already feel shitty enough sometimes with having Hashimoto, so I don't want to add feeling poopy to all of that. So I went, okay, I'm going to have 100 grams of carbs today, and then for a couple of days I'll have 80 grams, and then for a couple of days I'll have 60, and then I'll have 40. And so what I did was I lessened my carbohydrate gram load for a certain amount of days, like a week and a half, so I didn't go through all that detoxy feeling, you know, and it was a process. And then also like substituting certain things. When you know that you can have some blueberries, start trading things out. That's what I did, and I'd make my smoothie with some blueberries, and I'd have that sweet hit without having sugar. But I'll tell you, one of my favorite sugar substitutes, but don't eat too much because it'll make you have diarrhea, is monk fruit. Monk fruit is a really delicious substitute for sugar, and you can use it like an equal portion, pretty close to equal portion. I hope that helps, but that's what I've been doing.
I think it's a very strong antioxidant as well.
Mm-hmm. Monk fruit?
Monk fruit. Yes, I think so.
I didn't know that.
I believe so. We have another question, and that probably will be the last one because it's already time.
I know it goes fast.
Gabby, just wondering if anyone has used bioresonance to get an idea of how their body reacts to certain food, allergen, etc. I actually did that. Do you have something to say, Stacey, before?
I don't know that I understand. The bio what? Is she asking if we did like serums?
Bioresonance, yes.
No, I did. Oh, yes. Yeah, you know what? I have done CRA, but I haven't done the one where you lie on the table and they put a food in your mouth or on your stomach, and then they measure that. I have not done that test particularly, but go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I did it once, and it was actually pretty impressive because the first thing they said was that I was highly, highly allergic to gluten. That's the first thing that came up.
Mm.
So you know, why not?
I think I wouldn't turn down any modality. I think that you can find out fun things, and it's almost like, I think that what happens is you go down a couple of pathways, and if you have the dollars or time to do that, then what happens is you'll start seeing certain themes that are overlapping, that you go, gosh, I did this test, that test, and this woo-woo test over here, and then they all pointed to gluten. I think I should pay attention to that.
Yes, exactly. It's a good plan.
So it is time to do our closing remarks. Stacey, do you want to start?
I do. I would love to start. First of all, thank you, Fab and Pearl and Natasha. Thanks for being behind the scenes and doing all of your great work together. I'm so grateful for you and the whole team of HeyHashi. I have loved watching the evolution of what has happened from inspiration to activation of what you guys have done and how you are helping so many, supporting so many people. And I love knowing that there's a place that I can point my community to and my readers to say, hey, if you don't know the answer to this, or if you're looking for a helpful resource, or if you're looking for a place to give and support with your resources, would you please go over to HeyHashi.org, because they have specialists, they have articles, they have a whole team of people, and they've got meetups, and they've got a way to support you, and they have a place for you to support them. And I love knowing that this hub of information exists and a resource exists. I know how much you girls sacrifice. I've walked with you in my own way in it, and I'm grateful for your dedication, and I thank you so much, so much. And I want to encourage all of our community out there, if you have that within your reach to give to HeyHashi, you go to HeyHashi.org, and you can click the donate button, and you're able to give, and every amount makes a difference, and every amount supports these gals supporting you in your healing, and we're so grateful to be with you in community and service to you, and we're so grateful for any way that you can give back. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stacey. That goes straight to our heart. And I wanted to say also that to the audience that tonight we have the book of Stacey, and for any donation of 30 plus, we will send it to you. This is an awesome book, and it's so funny also. You would love it.
It's amazing.
So many stories of Stacey, just like on her picture, actually.
That's not me! That's not me! But I felt that way.
It was a part of you a long time ago.
Yes, yes.
You came a long way. We all came a long way. So thank you for being with us tonight. I hope these webinars support your journey into wellness.
Yes.
And we will see you next month.
And just thank you all for being here. And just to let you know a little bit about after we say goodbye, once you leave tonight's webinar, you're going to receive a survey on the presentation, and we would love it if you just took a few minutes just to do that for us and to complete that, just so that we can hear about your experience and continue bringing you the information and amazing, lovely people like Stacey and others to you for your journey and education. And what's so exciting is that you're going to receive a follow-up email about 24 to 48 hours later that's going to include a link to view this webinar with Stacey Robbins at any time, at any day, at your leisure, for free on our YouTube channel. So just click on that link when you get that email, and you can rewatch everything. Okay? And thank you so much. We love you guys.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
See you.